Good morning, my name is Jessica Cote. I am a Social Security disability advocate. I represent claimants that are applying or appealing for their benefits from the Social Security Administration. Today I'm just going to be giving a general overview of the type of benefits: retirement, disability, SSI, and SSDI. If anyone has any questions, I can always afterwards give you a card, or we can speak a little bit about your specific questions, because every case is different with Social Security. There's never one answer that can sort of be okay for everyone. I'll start a little bit with Social Security, retirement. That is a benefit that, depending on how much you've worked and how much you earned in the last maybe 10 years, that depends on the amount that you're going to get for Social Security. Generally speaking, for retirement, they take from the time that you started working or paying into the system. A lot of people are a little bit confused because they say that they've worked since they were 15, 16 years old, but when they go to claim their benefits, there are years that don't come up that they've worked, and that's because at that time they weren't paying into the system, or they weren't paying their taxes working under the table. If you're working under the table, you can be working 40 hours a week and it won't count, because you're only allowed to get benefits on the credits that you worked for, which means you're paying into the system. For anyone that was born after 1954, the full retirement age is 66 years old. It used to be 62, but now that people are living longer, they're having to move the age a little further as well. It doesn't mean that you cannot claim your retirement benefits. It just means that you won't get your full benefit amount until you are 66 years old. How much you're going to receive, again, depends on how many years you worked and your earnings and how many credits you have. There is a cap with Social Security though, but every person's is different. If you are 62 and you're wanting to retire, you will just be receiving less than your full check. So that's why a lot of people, if they are 62 and disabled, they'll get a larger check because it won't be retirement, they'll be going for disability, versus the ones that are just retired and do not have a disability. They will be receiving a shorter check. So speaking of disability, Social Security has its own rule or its own description of it. Disability is a medical condition expected to last at least 1 year or result in death. Your condition must significantly limit your ability to do basic work-related activities such as lifting, standing, walking, sitting, or remembering for at least 12 months. If you need major surgery, if you've had some type of organ transplant, if you have recuperated and you're ready to get back to work on your 11th month, you wouldn't qualify for disability benefits. Your treatment, your symptoms, it has to last for more than 12 months. And the way that Social Security will know that is by reviewing your medical records. There are also 2 requirements that you have to cover when it comes to disability benefits. It is, they have to find you medically disabled, but there are also other non-medical requirements that you have to pass in order to qualify for the benefits. If you're over 55, the definition of disability changes a little bit, because what you have to do, instead of being under 55 and having a disability that can stop you from, or having a condition that can stop you from working 40 hours a week, 55 weeks a year, then you are disabled. But you have to be disabled, or you have to be unable to perform any type of work, the easiest job you can find. That's what you can't do. Whereas if you're 55, you have to prove, or and over, you have to prove that you cannot do the easiest job you've had in the last 15 years. Now, easy can mean different things to different people. So Social Security has their own definition of it. If you are a construction worker and you are 56 years old, and throughout the last 15 years, you have been lifting, pushing, pulling over 55 pounds, as they do, because they have a lot of heavy things, it will be easier for you to get disability depending on your condition than a person who is 30 years old and does the same job, because they have to prove that they can't do any work. Not that they can't do the construction work, but that they can't do a job where they are sitting down, or they have the ability to either sit down, stand up as they please, low supervision, maybe not working around other people, and work either packing or inspecting items. There are two types of disability benefits. There are the Title II benefits and Title 16 benefits. A little bit of the Title II benefits, it's also known as disability or SSDI. It's designed for people who have legally worked. Again, if you're working under the table, it doesn't count. It's legal, it's illegal. You're supposed to be paying the system every time you get paid. So it's designed for people who have legally worked and paid enough taxes into the system for years. Depending on your age, if you are 19, 20 years old and you have been working for 3 years, you may still qualify. Kind of depends on the person. If you are 30 years old and you've only worked for 2 years, the same amount of time, you may not qualify for disability benefits. The disabled individual's assets or family income will not affect eligibility, so it doesn't matter if you have 5 homes, if you have 3 cars, if you're disabled, you paid into the system, you have a doctor that supports your disability, you earned that benefit, you get to receive that benefit. There is something, so I have this here before explaining SSI, but if you have a minor child who is disabled and you have assets, they will be denied SSI benefits, but they can still receive benefits until they turn 18. And that's called the disabled child. And it can go throughout, up to 18 and throughout. Now, if you have minor children and you are receiving SSDI, they can still receive benefits too, even if they're not in your household. So if you're divorced and you're receiving benefits, then the person who has custody of the children can always go to Social Security and say their parent is receiving benefits, I want to see if they are eligible. It's not going to be the same amount for everyone because there's a cap to how many benefits, the amount of money you can receive with disability. So if my cap was $2,000 and I was receiving $1,500, then there's only $500 left to go per month for however many children, whether it's 1 child, 10. But to generalize, to sort of summarize Title II benefits, that's the one that you get it if you work enough, and no matter how much money you have in the bank, you can still get the SSDI if you are deemed disabled. And then with that one, if you have minor children, they also can receive a benefit monthly. Whereas for Title 16 benefits, which is SSI, so the Title II and Title 16, it can seem a little bit confusing, but generally speaking, we just use SSI or SSDI. D is for the disability. So for SSI, that's more of the government's way to cover people who are disabled and have not worked or have not worked enough to pay into the system to earn their disability benefits. So it may not be the best phrase, but it's also known as the federal welfare. So if you are disabled and you are unable to work, you are still able to receive some monthly benefit to help you survive. So it's SSI, and it's persons who have never worked or worked but have not paid enough taxes to earn enough credits for SSI. This is also the type of benefit that you would apply for a child. So for someone who hasn't worked and if their parent is not disabled. It is a needs-based. It doesn't matter if you have worked or you haven't worked. If you are receiving SSDI benefits, here's where it might get a little bit confusing too. Let's say you did work, but you didn't earn a significant amount of money and you didn't work for that long. And so your Social Security disability check is only going to be $500 a month. In that case, you may still qualify for the SSI benefits because it's $850 is the limit. So they would get 2 checks. If you ever heard someone that's receiving Social Security and they're saying, oh, I get my check on the 1st and then I get another one on the 3rd, that's possibly what happens, is that Social Security is covering, they understand that it's $500 is way too low to survive on. So they will give you the extra $300 using the other program for SSI. In 2022, the household resources cannot be worth more than $2,000 for an individual or $3,000 for a couple. The maximum rate is now $841 per month and $1,261 for couples. So you are married and you are disabled, you do not own more than one home, or the home that you own is the one you live in. The vehicle that you have is the one that you drive, so you don't have a fleet of vehicles, but you're disabled and you haven't worked too much. They say that you qualify for SSI. You're married. If your partner makes more than a certain amount, you may be deemed unqualified. That's where it goes, the medical and then the non-medical requirements. Social Security will be able to tell you if you give them the pay stubs or you explain your living situation, the household size, all of that is put into the system so that they can determine how much you are able to receive a month. The numbers for anyone who is blind are much higher. The Social Security understands that there are other, needs to take into consideration for individuals that are blind. So the income limits and all of that is higher for individuals who are blind. Yep.
Yes, when you say household resources, are you talking about assets like
Yes.
what's in the bank?
What's in the bank? If you have a house here and you have a house in the Virgin Islands, you may not qualify because they don't count the house that you live in. So you can have a $3 million house and still qualify, but then someone else that doesn't have a house but they have $6,000 in the bank won't qualify.
Yeah, but somebody could have money in the bank that could exceed $2,000, saving it for a rainy day, and they wouldn't qualify.
Right. Because it's a needs based. So this is the rainy day. You go to them when you have nothing else to go for. Another thing to note is there are people who are working, let's say for the state teachers, for example, they are not paying Social Security, well, they have the ability to not pay the Social Security taxes. So you can work for 85, let's say you worked in the general population for 20 years. Then you say, oh no, I want to work for my community, I want to do something nice, let me go into teaching. So you decide to teach for 7 years and something happens, you become disabled. Well, as far as I know, I'm not too sure about the state disability, but I believe it was 10 years. And so you didn't make it to the 10 years to get anything from the school system, but then you also were out of work for the last 5 years, which means your credits expired. Credits is what I was mentioning, how much you work and how much you earned. You build those credits. After 4 or 5 years, they expire. So they can count that for your retirement, but not disability. If you're out of work for 5 years, you have to prove that your disability began the day you were last insured. So they're out of the system for 5, 6, 7 years because they became a teacher. They become disabled. They don't qualify for that disability. They come to try and apply for Social Security, and they wouldn't qualify for that if they have other assets. So if they saved up for their retirement, they'll have to spend that out and then try again.
So what about women who stay home to take care of their children and then they come back to the workforce and they become disabled? They have an interruption.
There's a special rule for that. I believe it's 3 years, but Social Security, they will look at the credits that they had before and the credits that they had in the last 10 years, and they will sort of try to average things out, but they do protect those women or those parents. They are in Massachusetts. Every state is different because everyone wants their own rules. But in Massachusetts, there are 3 stages to applying for Social Security. There is the initial, reconsideration, and the hearing. For the most part, the initial stage is going to last maybe 3 months. With COVID and with everything happening, it's a lot longer because you are no longer able to go in person. The claims workers, a lot of them, claims reps are working from their homes, and it's just a longer process. So you can file the application on your own, or you can look for an attorney or an advocate, and they can do it for you. You can call Social Security, the Worcester Social Security office. What they do is you call them, they set an appointment, and then they go through the application with you by phone. You'll mail in the original documentation that they requested, and the process starts that way. A lot of people are denied in this stage, so don't be surprised if you do receive a denial. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get approved. You can always appeal. The people who I've seen mostly there are approved in the initial stage are people who have a very serious condition that may lead to death, or they have a condition that meets what Social Security calls a listing. A listing is sort of a group of disability, of impairments and conditions, mental and physical, that Social Security has these little sections that you have to sort of check everyone off, check each of them off, and then if you do, let's say it's a heart condition, well, your heart, you have to have this, this test, and this doctor has to say that you have this amount of use for this organ. If everything checks out, then you are automatically approved through those conditions. The reconsideration stage, once you are denied in the initial stage, you appeal the process. It's very important, I don't know if I go through this later, that you have a doctor that supports your disability and that you are currently treating. It is very difficult to be approved for disability benefits if you are not currently treating, and if you are not following the directions of your doctor. They're there to help you, and if you're not trying to help yourself, then Social Security is going to be a little hesitant in approving you your benefits. At the reconsideration stage, your application is sent to the Disability Determination Services, which they follow Social Security rules, but it's not the same place as you would go in to get your Social Security card or to change your name. It's a different section. And what they do is they review the Social Security rules, they review your medical records, they see if they match, and then they send your medical records and everything to 2 doctors that work for Social Security, and they make the decision whether you are disabled or not disabled medically, and then Social Security has to then review everything to see if you have the non-medical requirements. Again, that's when they're going to check your assets, if you're applying for SSI, how much you've worked, if you're applying for SSDI. If they find that you're not treating enough or there's not enough evidence to say whether you are disabled or not, Social Security at this stage may send you to a psychological or a medical examination. So it's one of their doctors that will see you and review your symptoms with you. And sort of do, if it's a physical, they'll do a physical. If it's mental health, they'll give you a mental health evaluation. That one used to last about 6 to 9 months. It's a lot longer now after COVID. The next stage is the hearing stage. If you are denied at reconsideration, you will then have to wait to see an administrative law judge. Any of these 3 stages you can do on your own, and any of these three stages you can find some type of representation. A lot of judges, when you get there, will look at the record and they would tell you that you should get some form of representation. So the hearing is more face-to-face. Of course, with COVID, things have changed. It's either by video or by phone. Now, some hearing offices are opening up to where they're seeing claimants in person, excuse me. This, during the hearing, every judge has their own style, but usually the judge asks the claimant questions. What do they do all day? Well, do you have anyone that helps you? Who are your doctors? Where are you getting treatment? By that time, you should have already sent in all of your medical records. And that's another thing. The only way Social Security gets in their information is through your medical records. So what you tell your doctor is most likely writing down and is putting into your record. That is what Social Security is going to read. So if you tell your doctor, oh, I just got back from vacation and it was a 3-hour flight and the baby was crying and da-da-da. If that doctor puts that into the record, then Social Security is going to see that this person that's saying that they're just so disabled that they can't work is on vacation and, you know, doing all of these things. Or if somebody says like, oh yes, I am exercising, I run 30 minutes every day, but then you're telling Social Security that you can't sit for 10 minutes or something, you have to be careful. And you have to make sure that your doctor knows what you're really going through. That you're not just saying, oh yeah, I'm fine, because that's the normal thing to say. And you don't want to seem like the one that's complaining all the time, and you know, you want to put a tough face, and who wants to see you, who wants to be the, you know, that person. But your doctor's there to help you. Your doctor needs to know all of your symptoms from the time you wake up through the time you go to bed. If you're waking up throughout the night, if you're taking frequent breaks throughout the day, your doctor should know that, because the only way Social Security is going to know that is if your doctor puts that into your record. And the only way the doctor is going to know that is if you're saying that. If you feel that you do not have your doctor's support, then you should change doctors. This is just generally the approval and disability rate. Especially in the initial stages, it's a lot. It's very common to be denied disability benefits. This is in 2016, only 2% were allowed in the initial stage. So again, it's the very, very severe cases that Social Security tries to get processed as soon as possible, because that person should be focused on their health and not really receiving benefits. And that's one thing that Social Security really tries their best to do. 30% of people are denied for technical reasons, and they can be disabled, but for some reason, or you know, they were denied technically. So that's why it's important to at least speak to an advocate or speak to a claims representative, so that you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing, or the evidence that Social Security knows, Social Security needs, so that you can get that to them quickly. This is just another general, when it comes to widow's benefits. If you are disabled and you haven't reached retirement age, you can still earn widow's benefits, depending on your disability. Okay, and that's all I have for now.